Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you all today about the City of Auburn. As Bill said, I am new to the position of City Manager. February 2nd of last year was when I was appointed City Manager by the City Council. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about our form of government because in Alabama, the council manager form of government is unique or not very well dispersed among all of the municipalities and counties in Alabama. However, in the United States, council manager forms of government is one of the most prevalent forms of government. The council manager form of government, for those who are not familiar with it, is a more professional type way of doing municipal government. The council acts as the board of directors. If you think of it as a corporation, the council is a board of directors. They set the vision and the strategy for the corporation, or in this case for the city. They hire and they fire the city manager, me. I am like the CEO of a corporation. All of the staff report to me. In Auburn, it is a misdemeanor violation. It is a crime for any of the council members, including the mayor, to direct staff, to direct the work of staff. They can only do that through me. And that then brings professional management. It keeps the staff, the department heads and all the staff, kind of out of the political arena. It gives them some cover. I am kind of the go-between between the politicians and the staff. So in Alabama, that is very rare. We only have, we'll say 6. I believe there are only 5 city manager forms of government in Alabama. There are 6 because there's one city that says they are, but by statute, I don't think they are. But there are 5 or 6 forms of government that are city manager forms of government in Alabama. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as we are different. I think most of our population still, even after we've been a council manager form of government in this form since 1983, since Dr. Doug Watson was city manager here. Doug was actually the city manager who hired me. And before that, the statute under which Auburn operated was not an official city manager type form of government, although we did have what we called a city manager at the time, before 1983. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the city of Auburn, where we are, what we're doing, and I want to give you an opportunity to ask me questions, so please feel free as I'm going through the presentation to raise your hand, and I'll be glad to answer any questions as I'm going through it. Also at the end, I will try to leave some time for you all to ask questions. I know I have a clicker up here somewhere. And I do have my notes, so I'm going to have to refer to my notes. But the first thing I want to talk about is Auburn is growing. And I know that for years, there have been people that I don't think will accept that we've been growing, and we've been growing since, I don't know if I got a little pointer. I don't. Yeah, I do. So if you look at this chart, 1960, we were about 15,000, let's say more or less. We project, and this is the census, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but the census, U.S. Census predicts that we'll be 90,000 in about 2040. We believe that is really low. And the reason we believe that is because we know that in 2010, which was the last census, the census counted us as about 53 to 55,000 people. We know that they undercounted significantly in certain areas of the city, and we contested that. So we believe that in 2010, we were closer to over 60,000. So, but if we just go by the census figures, you see that we are on a steady growth curve, and we have been ever since 1960. So there are those who want to continue to be the small town. I think that is past. We are transitioning now from a small town to a medium-sized city, and we have all of the opportunities that come with that, that the challenges that we have to meet that come with that. But if you take our figures and put this 2010 to above 60,000, you will see that we will be 100,000 by 2030. And that is where we're saying that is where our population will be in 2030. And as a government, we have to plan for that. Now, Auburn is in a metropolitan statistical area. So, as you know, we have Auburn and Opelika right next to each other, and then we have surrounding county and small towns around us. If you take right today, according to the U.S. Census, if you take the Auburn statistical area, we have a population of 150,000 people. So the Auburn-Opelika MSA is 150,000 people. So any given day, we are accommodating not just our residents, but our MSA folks, the people that may work in Auburn but not live in Auburn, to around 150,000 people. So when you project that out, even though the city of Auburn will be at 100,000 or close to 100,000 in 2030, the MSA will be significantly larger. So that is one of the things that's irrefutable. Growth is happening. We want to know, so we ask ourselves why? What is causing all this growth? Auburn University is a big contributor to the growth. I wonder if you all know how many students, as of this quarter, or this quarter, how many students are enrolled at Auburn University? No. A little over 29,000. They've had, this year again, will be one of the largest incoming freshman classes. The new Dr. Leith has indicated that he wants to raise the graduate population of the university by 3,000 students, and he hasn't decided yet how big we want to increase the undergraduate population. If we look to the north of us and to our sister university in Tuscaloosa, they are at 37,000. We fully expect that Auburn University in the next 5 years will be up to 35,000. If there are 35,000 students, there are going to be additional professors, additional support staff. That helps grow the city. The other thing that really is a factor in growth in the city is Auburn City Schools. We have a lot of people who live in Auburn who work in Columbus, in Montgomery, in the surrounding area, but they come to Auburn to put their kids in Auburn City Schools. If you are living in Montgomery and you have your children, say you have 2 children, you're paying $15,000 to $20,000 each a year for them to be in private school. You can come to Auburn, put your kids in public school, have a very good school system, give yourself a $30,000 raise just by coming to Auburn and locating in Auburn, and then you can commute to work. It's a 45-minute commute to work. We have a lot of people in Auburn that are doing that. Our industry folks who keep track of this have noted that all of the management personnel of the Kia plant, that's over in LaGrange or West Point, the Kia plant on the interstate going towards Atlanta, all of the management personnel with children live in Auburn. They commute to work at the Kia plant, but they live in Auburn. So that also drives the school system, drives the growth. And then not only is it something that we have to do, but it also drives some growth, and that is Auburn is employed. We're at just under 4%, or just at 3% unemployment. And 3% unemployment is basically full employment. Back in the 70s, it used to be 4% was full employment, or 5%, and sometimes even 6%, as we went through the years, that the government would say, well, that is considered, if you have 6% unemployment, that's full employment. Well, we're at 3%. The county is even below that at 2.9%. And you see that the state of Alabama is at 3.5%, and the country as a whole is at 4.1%. So we have a lot of jobs in Auburn. And the thing about the jobs in Auburn is that they are well-paying jobs in our manufacturing area. So in talking about economic development, we have what started out as our only industrial park. And this is the park that was down on what's this, Highway 14, which is Martin Luther King Drive. And it's on Pumphrey, right off of Shug Jordan. It is now pretty much filled. And these are the incubator companies. These are the companies, smaller companies, not counting Alabama Power. They've been there for a long time. But these are smaller companies that might be just getting off the ground or want to have a location that when they grow, they will move to one of our bigger technology parks. But this one is pretty much filled. We have Auburn Technology Park South, which is down, if you go down South College, across the interstate, on the right-hand side, you'll see these fountains. That's Auburn Technology Park South. That is where Briggs & Stratton is located. That park is full. And we have those industries that you see here, Donaldson, Nikkei, ACI. That park is full. We also have Auburn Technology Park North. That is a smaller park. It too is full. And those are the companies that are there. And we have Auburn Technology Park West, which is our newest technology park. It is not yet full. We do have some room for growth. We expect that for the next 5 years, we have enough room to grow in that park. But after that, we're going to be looking for new land for new companies to come. Most of these companies are manufacturing companies. These are high-tech companies. Our issue right now with the 3% unemployment is that we cannot find in our area the type of worker that is needed to handle the type of jobs that are being required, the high-skilled jobs. Most of the jobs, when you think of manufacturing in the old days, you think of people with their hands making something, sitting at a lathe and developing something. These days, if you go to these parks and you see how these industries are operating, most of it is computer type stuff. So the operator has to figure the angles, has to figure the math, has to program it into the machine. Then the machine makes the part. The operator, the employee, is more of a computer technician than he is the person. He has to understand, or she has to understand, how to make that device, but more importantly, has to understand how to program the machine to make that device. And these are very high-skilled positions, and they're very well-paying. And we are having a problem at this point of trying to find people that can fill these positions. So we've started at the high school level. We'd like to start at an earlier level, but we at least have started at the high school level, where high school kids get a chance to work with some of this high-tech machinery and to gain some of the skill set needed to go into some of these industries that we have that they're paying pretty well. So in 1983, we started off with about 800 jobs in our industrial park, that first one I showed you. Today, we have just over 5,640 jobs among 48 manufacturers, 48 different companies in our technology parks. So we have since 1983, we have somewhat diversified our economy. in the old days of Auburn, the economy was very tied to Auburn University. If you didn't work at Auburn University, there was very little place for you to work. Today, we have just about as many employees in the manufacturing area as we do at Auburn University. A few less, but it's coming closer, with almost 5,700 employees in manufacturing in Auburn. So having said all that, I wanted to share with you just this last year, just 2017, what a few of the accolades we received from different entities. And the significant thing about this is we never go somewhere and say, hey, why don't you say these good things about us? We do not advertise what we do. This is all companies that do their own research, come up with their own listings. And so, as you see in 2017, Southern Living Magazine noted that we were number 7 of the best small towns in whatever they have a population that they look at of about 20 million subscribers, and their subscribers voted us number 7 of the best small towns in the United States. Niche.com, which is another place that rates things, has rated our school systems as one of the top in Alabama, and that's our city school system. AL.com rated us one of the 6th best place to live in Alabama. USA Today showed that we are, of all the cities in the United States, we are number 16 at adding the most jobs. And SafeHome.org, which is another internet-type company, rated us number 7 in the state of the safest cities in Alabama. Now, Alabama overall is a safe state. So when you're rated number 7 safest city in a very safe state, that's significant. And there are all kinds of other accolades that the city gets. And like I said, it's not because we're out there asking for them, but we'll take them. I think others are recognizing that this is a good place to live. It also drives growth. I mean, if you are here and you like it, and you are not here, and you see this, you want to come here. Yes, ma'am?
We think Ollie is one of the attractions of Auburn State.
Well, and Auburn University and what it provides, the opportunities that it provides, is definitely a growth. And Ollie is an outshoot that probably couldn't be here if the university didn't exist, but it is. It really is. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Is the student population part of the total population that you're quoting?
Yes, but we don't. So that's why I said, as you saw those first 2 graphs, the census does not count all of the students. We know that. They're supposed to. All of the students should be counted in the census. What we do is we count as much as we can, all of the students. So that comes into our calculation in both graphs. Now, the census will tell you they count all the students. We can show you where they don't. So when we count them, we get the 100,000 by 2030. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any way to limit the number of people who move here to the water supply that we have available? I'm really concerned about that.
We have plenty of water. One of the slides you're going to see me talk about here in a second is we just finished an expansion to our outlet of Ogletree, Lake Ogletree. That adds 50 million gallons of water to Lake Ogletree. We have a deep well that we've been using now for about 10 years that provides extremely good water to us. We've just identified a second deep well that will provide more water than that one does at a different location. And we have almost an unlimited supply of water from Opelika. Now, we have to purchase the water from Opelika, but we have an agreement with them, and they have a lot of water because of their connection to Lake, I forget the lake that they're connected to. Hardin, yeah. And we have that. We have a connection. Where I live, sometimes I'm on Opelika water. If we're in type of a drought situation, We buy water from Opelika, and we open up the valve, and that water comes in, and where I live, I'm getting Opelika water, even though it's coming through the Auburn system. But we have plenty of water, at least we think, to deal with not only this growth, but where we see the growth is going. This past summer, and again, with having a university that is a big football university, we're limited in the time frame we have to do some of these big projects for water and sewer. But this summer, we kind of bit the bullet and closed down College, North College, where we could put in some additional sewer lines all down North and South College in the old part of Auburn. The sewer lines and the water lines are actually underneath the buildings on both sides of the street. We have to get them out of there, and the only way we can do that is to close down the road, to put in new pipes in the road and then put it back together. But eventually, as those houses or those buildings are redeveloped, or as the system ages, and that system is pretty old right now, if there were a sewage leak or if there were a water line breakage, it would be right up underneath those buildings. So we're doing work to get that right now, to get all of that out into the roadway so that if it does have a problem that we need to maintain it, we're out there. We did that on Glen too, a little bit last year and in 2016. We actually had to close it down for a bit while we replaced some of the old infrastructure there. With growth, all of y'all have seen the 3 new, you've probably only seen one so far, and construction of the other 2, but there are 3 new apartment complexes going up in downtown Auburn. One is called the Evolve. It's already finished. It's on Glen and Wright Street on the corner of Glen and Wright. There are about 400 beds in that particular complex. Right across the street from that complex, there is one coming out of the ground called 191. There will be about 400 beds in that. And then as you see on the end of Gay Street, on the corner of Gay Street and Glen, there'll be about 700 beds on that one that's coming out of the ground called the Standard. The Evolve kind of looks like a shoebox, just a big box. It's just sitting there. We had hoped that there would be some architectural elements put on that building that wouldn't make it look so much like a shoebox. I think the one that is going on the corner of Gay and Glen will be much more aesthetically pleasing from an architectural standpoint. They sued us. We didn't want them to build there. Alabama is a property rights state. You have to be very careful. If someone owns property and you do something to devalue that property, the state does not look kindly on that. They sued us because we told them they couldn't build that there. We were told by our lawyers, who we spent a lot of money on, that if it went to court, we would lose. And so we did a arbitration with them. We got some concessions from them. They paid us $1 million for street improvements, aesthetic improvements for the street. They also agreed not to be like the Evolve and go right to the property line and build a box. They agreed to some aesthetically pleasing architectural elements. They agreed to the amount of parking that we required of them. Actually, they went over the amount of parking, and they're doing it on-site underneath their facility. So even though they sued us, even though we would have lost, I think in the end we got a better product that was going to go there anyway. And I think our staff was able to negotiate a very good result out of what could have been a very bad situation. But when you wonder why those are being built, you heard me talk about how many students we're going to have in the near future. And that's why they're being built. And it's my understanding, I haven't priced them, my understanding they're renting those for $1,000 a bed. So that's a pretty significant income. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things in 2017 that we are doing. One of the big issues that we find, we do a yearly survey, a yearly citizen survey. One of the things, there are two things that pop out of that survey almost consistently over the last at least 5 years. Parking downtown and traffic congestion. We're addressing both of those issues. So you've heard about the new, we've bought the, or we're in the process of buying the Baptist Student Center that's on College Street. We will close on that property in February. We plan to build a parking deck on the back half of that property, the property that fronts Wright Street. That parking deck, if we don't know exactly how many spaces, but probably will be around 350 spaces, if not more, that will be providing parking for downtown Auburn. This year, we were supposed to finish in December, but we did a parking lot on Glen Avenue. This parking lot, we hope to be a model of what parking lots, if they're going to be built, should look like. These are our all permeable pavers. It's a permeable parking lot. There will be landscaping. If you go down Glen, you'll see all the sidewalk work and all the lighting work that we're doing to make the path from this parking lot all the way up to Toomer's Corner or to the city of Auburn, the center of Auburn, to make that safe, to make that enjoyable, and to make that ADA compliant, which it is not now. Another thing we're doing, we know that we need a new public safety building. We've needed a new public safety building for a long time. It was about 10 years ago, I guess, that we took over the policing operation, maybe a little longer than that, for the city, or for the university. So we have a single police force, that's the Auburn City Police Force, that polices the university and polices Auburn. And so we've grown substantially in the few years since we did that, and we need a new facility to house the police and the fire. So this is a rendering of that new facility. We hope to break ground on this in March. That's it here. It will house Fire Station Number 1, which is on the corner of Ross and Magnolia. That's where this footprint will be. Fire Station Number 1 is coming down. This new building will be built. We will then move the fire back into it, along with all of the police that are in the police building next door. We will then tear down that old police building and make that the parking for this building. We hope to have that completed by end of 2019, mid to end of 2019. So this building will be occupied around that time. There is a master plan for it's called the Doug Watson Municipal Complex. There is a master plan for that, and the master plan calls for us to move City Hall back to that area at some point. City Hall is currently on Tichenor. At some point, it will probably be moved back to this facility here, to the Doug Watson facility. We do have other departments that are adapting to the growth, and our Auburn Public Library. It's interesting that the circulation in the Auburn Public Library is actually increasing. You would think that these days you look at libraries and you'd say, well, people aren't checking out books as much anymore, and that for most part is true, but they are still looking for the services that the library provides. They're looking for the research services, they're looking for the electronic services, they're looking for the social services. Our library now is providing a lot of social services, services where you bring your kids in and they're read, or you read books to them, or they have playtime that's actually educational playtime. Things that libraries usually didn't do in the past, our library is doing. Our head librarian, our director of library is Chris Warren. Chris came to us recently from, I guess 5 years ago, from Georgia, He's done a great job in moving our library into this century. Oh, they did do, they started a self-checkout program, and they also forgave all old library fines. So, many of you have heard about our new single-stream recycling program. We were able to move that out through a grant, through the a federal grant that we got, that we were able to buy half as many carts as we needed to do single-stream recycling, and that was about a $288,000, $300,000 grant. It cost us about that much money to buy 5,000 carts. We need another 5,000 to 6,000 carts to service all the people in Auburn who want to do recycling. So we started our program with the first 5,000 carts. We had to buy a packer truck. So this truck here cost us about $250,000. We had to buy a new packer truck just to help with this new single-stream recycling. I just approved us to go and buy 2 more packer trucks to get ready for the next 5,000 or 6,000 carts that we're going to put out and get everyone else who wants to do single-stream recycling in the city to do single-stream recycling. In the areas that we introduced single-stream recycling, we only had 45%, before single-stream recycling, we had 45% of the households participating in recycling. When we rolled out single-stream, we now have 90 to 95% participation in single-stream recycling. This is something, again, through our citizen survey, that the citizens told us they wanted, and so this is something we were able to provide through that grant. Yes, sir?
When do you expect the next phase?
We're actually starting already. We expect that we're going to get another grant in the summertime to buy the next 5,000 carts. And we're almost sure we're going to get that. So I've already said, let's go ahead and get ready for that. Let's get the packer trucks ordered. Let's go ahead and place our order for the carts. One of the things that we found when we did this first round, it took us about 6 months to get the carts after we ordered them. We ordered them and they just didn't come. So we're already going to do, we're taking our chances, we're putting out the money. We're pretty sure we're going to get the money. So, like I said, we've already put out, I've adjusted the budget by $500,000. These packer trucks cost us $250,000 each. We're going to order those. We'll get the next $300,000 grant, which will allow us to buy the rest of the carts we need. And we'll be ready as soon as those carts come in. So, hopefully summertime. I mean, if it takes 6 months, if we order them now, 6 months from now, 7 months from now, we should be able to roll it out to everybody else. Yes, sir?
Can you just tell me what the situation with plastic is?
Yes, and I think that social media is bad. We see things on social media, and I don't know where people find this stuff. But what happened with the plastics, we have to deal with companies who accept our recycling. I mean, it is not a money-making venture. It's actually it costs us money to recycle, a significant amount of money. And we have to deal with people who will accept our recycling. And they are private companies, and they want to make money. When our current, or the person who was our current recycler, found out that we were going to single stream, and we were going to start accepting not only the plastics that that recycler would accept, but a broader range of plastics, he said, I'm not doing business with you anymore. So we had nowhere to take our plastics. So temporarily, we had to stop taking plastics until we could get the carts ready, get single stream in place, and now we're taking it to a different recycler in Columbus, that who is accepting all of our plastics. So now, even if you're not on single stream, you can still put out your plastics more, I think 1 through 7 or whatever the designation is, more than what you could before. We will pick it up. It just won't be on single stream. We will pick it up, we will put it in our bins, and then when we take the plastics to Columbus, they'll go along with them. But there was on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all this stuff, we're talking about how the City of Auburn was no longer doing plastics. That's not true. We would do it as long as we have somebody who takes our plastic. As I said, whatever we recycle, we have to deal with somebody who will accept that. And some people won't accept it just because they're mad at us because we're not going to do business with them anymore. We had hoped to continue recycling of the plastics while we were waiting for this new single stream to come online, but we couldn't. But we are now. Even if you don't have single stream, you can still recycle plastics now. One thing we still don't take, because we don't take those plastic bags that you get from the grocery store, that type of thing, we still don't take those because the recycler won't take them. Now, this recycler will not take glass because the single stream recycler says that it messes up their equipment when they're sorting equipment. We will take glass if you bring it to our recycling center, and we have a different group that recycles that. But you can't throw it into your single stream. But you can take it to our recycling center and on Donahue and drop it there.
How much of a decrease in volume for the trash have you seen in the areas where you're
A lot.
doing more recycling?
Right. And our environmental services director had given us those numbers. I presented those numbers to the council. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but it's a significant drop in the trash, the stuff we have to send to the landfill, when you're doing recycling. It is a very significant number. And especially when you get 90 to 95% of the population recycling, that means they're not throwing it in the landfill. Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
So I'm sure in your position, you weigh the balances between an additional landfill and the cost of it, or what the city's paying each month to recycle our recyclable items.
Yes. So
There needs to be a balance.
well, we are subsidizing, when we say the city, we have set up an enterprise fund for environmental services, for trash collection. And that includes recycling, trash collection, and yard debris collection. So all that is considered under environmental services. Your rate, your garbage rate, is set based on the cost that is costing us to do all that. Now, we're still subsidizing, the general fund is still subsidizing by a little bit, not a lot, but by a little bit, the general fund is still subsidizing that operation. Our goal eventually will be to where that operation has to pay for itself, which means that's fees. You are paying those fees, you as the citizen. Yes, sir?
Two questions. We're currently on single stream.
On the what, I'm sorry?
We're currently on single stream. So what do we do with the bins that we used to use?
You can either we can collect them or you can bring them back to us at the recycling center. If you would get in touch with our environmental services folks, I don't know their number off the top of my head, it's on our website, but I think they will collect them. But they can always be returned to us at the Donahue site. Yes?
Will there be any help for recycling electronics? I don't think we can.
We do that. We've been doing it once a year. We're now going to do it twice a year. We call it our hazardous waste day, where you can bring in hazardous waste. Electronics are considered hazardous waste, and we have to deal with those separately. Those have to be treated separately. They have to be sent to a different area, and so we collect electronics during our which we're now going to. We used to do once a year. Now we're going to twice a year. The other thing we're doing for yard debris collection, we used to have 1 week where you had free collection of yard debris, no matter how big. We're now doing that for about 6 weeks. It'll be a 6-week period where you can put out during what is the most busy time, because people are cleaning up their yards and all that and putting that out. We're going to do that for 6 weeks now, where you're going to not have to pay if you have oversized branches and all kinds of debris, yard debris. So we're going from a 1-week period to a 6-week period. Someone else? Yes.
Well, now that you've gone to single stream,
It would. However, we have many citizens that believe we should be doing more than once a week. Yeah, that, for me, you could maybe do once every 2 months for me, for my house. But we do have a lot of citizens who think that we should be collecting more often. But yes, it would save us quite a bit of money if we could just collect once a month as opposed to once every week. Okay. So the City of Auburn, and I take no credit for this, but I do credit Dr. Watson for it. He really got very, very good people, and he developed a culture of having very well qualified people as employees of the City of Auburn. And our finance department has won the Certificate of Achievement in Excellence of Financial Reporting 30 years in a row. And that's no small feat. That is really significant. And it just goes to show the quality of employees we have in the City of Auburn. I really am, as Bill introduced me, I did not intend to stay with the City of Auburn. Dr. Watson called me up. I was in the private sector. I loved the private sector. He convinced me that he wanted an IT department established at the City of Auburn. So I told him I would stay for 3 years. I could establish the department, get it functional without me in 3 years. And I said, I'm going back to the private sector. Because when he was talking to me, I viewed government as being less than professional. I've soon found out that the people that I were dealing with, at least in the Auburn government, would challenge me. They were smarter than I was, they knew more than I did, and it became a real challenge. And so that 3-year commitment, I'm now in my 21st year of working for the City of Auburn. And I really did like the private sector, I really did. So, and speaking of information technology, we have a great group of folks, very talented group of folks. Many times we get citizens and we get vendors who come to tell us how they can help in technology. And once they see what we have, they really are amazed. And especially when they see how much we pay for what we have. Because what we pay for what we have is so much less than what other communities are paying for much less. So we just released a new interactive website that if you all have gone to auburnalabama.org, you will see now you can pull it up on your cell phone, you can pull it up on your iPad, you can pull it up on your computer screen. It is a website that will adjust itself to the type of a device that you're having. It is also much, much quicker than it used to be. With that website, and talking about parking, we have a parking app. We've had the smart parking for some time in some of our parking lots, the Gay Street parking lot, the what we call the Titchener parking lot, and the parking deck. There are sensors that actually sense if you're parked there or not. This application will tell you if you have, if there's a car parked there or if there's free space. So even before you get there, you can bring it up on your cell phone and say, is there any space right here? You don't have to keep going around. We will increase that smart parking as we change all of the meters downtown to the more electronic ones, and we put the sensors in the ground. And so you should be able to tell where there's a free space without having to keep driving around and around. That will also be all of our new parking deck that we're talking about on the old Baptist property will all be computerized, and you'll be able to tell how many spaces are in there before you get there. Parks and Recreation, you all may have heard about our Parks and Recreation and Culture Master Plan. We had a public meeting, was it last Tuesday when we had the snowstorm or just before the snowstorm? We did have a public meeting about that. I think that was the 3rd or 4th public meeting we've had on that Culture Master Plan. We are going to present that master plan to a joint session of the City Council, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and the Library Board. It is a plan that probably has $100 to $150 million worth of projects in it. For the first 5 years, I have allocated $30 million to do 5 years worth of projects. in the next 5 years. What those projects will be, we don't know yet. That's what the council and the two boards will come up with their priorities, what they want to see first, second, and third. We do know we have $30 million set aside to do the first set of projects. But we expect over the next 20 years, it's probably $100 to maybe $150 million worth of projects. We expect that we will continue to fund those. We did give up the funding mechanism we used to have for Parks and Recreation was our 5 mil fund that we've had since 1940. When the schools built the new high school, we gave that fund to Auburn City Schools so they would have a funding mechanism to fund their infrastructure. So we no longer have that, so now it comes out of our general fund. But we are accommodating for that. Fortunately, we are growing. Fortunately, our revenues are good, and we're able to do that. So we'll be putting $30 million in the next 5 years. We have purchased 160 acres of land out on Richland Road. That will be a new park. That's in conjunction with where Auburn City Schools is building their new elementary school, and where they have plans to build a second high school. I believe now they said they probably will need a second high school in 2025. They've pushed it back a little. I think at one time they were saying 2022, but I think now it's 2025. We've done some renovations to Boykin Community Center. We are actually making this a real community center. I think the neighbors in that area are going to be very proud of this facility. We're working with Auburn University School of Nursing and the Pharmacy School. Both of them are going to have an area in the Boykin Community Center where they can provide nursing services and pharmacy services to the people in that community, and they'll be housed in there. It will be a really true community center. Northwest Auburn, that's where Boykin is. We have been a planning session, many planning sessions for what we want to do with Northwest Auburn. You've heard us talking about the different planning sessions we have, the downtown master plan, the Opelika Road plan. We have a bunch of different plans. We now have the Northwest Auburn plan. This is a gateway into Auburn. Highway 14, Martin Luther King Drive, is a gateway into Auburn. Recognizing that that is a gateway into Auburn, we want it to represent what Auburn is, and want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in our gateways. And so we have a plan for Northwest Auburn that I think the look and feel of Northwest Auburn will be dramatically changed for the better. Our Comp Plan 2030, that is a comprehensive plan for the city. It went into its 5-year major update this last year in 2017. There's significant controversy about all these plans because everybody wants something out of the plan. Eventually, the council has to decide what they're going to recommend. We talked about public safety. One of the things, even though we're a growing community, a rapidly growing community, and we're getting more calls for service than we have. And a call for service is not just always a bad thing. A call for service might mean that you're calling because you locked yourself out of your house or whatever. But if we just take calls for service as a whole, so fire responded to 241,000, well, fire and police, to 241,440 calls in 2017, as opposed to 191,341 calls in 2016. So they responded to a significant number more calls. However, in that same time frame, we had 32 robberies and 1,341 thefts. And the difference between robbery and theft, robbery is more severe than theft. Theft could be going to a grocery store and taking some milk and walking out. That's theft. Coming into someone's house and taking a bunch of property, that's a robbery. So in 2017, we had 32 robberies and 1,341 thefts. In 2016, we had 56 robberies and 3,818 thefts. So the police division has made a significant effort to reduce property crime, and it's working. And we are constructing the new public safety building. and we hope to begin that in March, as I said.
You didn't mention violence,
I'm sorry?
you didn't mention crimes of violence.
So if for right now, I think crimes of violence in 2017 as opposed to 2016, I would say that we had more crimes of, let's say murder, that's a crime of violence, and rape. We've had fewer rapes, but we've had more murders. The specific numbers I didn't bring with me, but those are things that are very hard for us to control in this day and age, especially the gun issues. In the old days, if you got mad at somebody, you might punch them in the nose. These days, it seems somebody gets mad at somebody, they take out a gun and shoot them. And that's really an issue for crime or for law enforcement. Now in Auburn, this 2017 was, we had more murders in Auburn in 2017. However, it is somewhat cyclic. When we say more, and I can't remember the exact number, it might have been 4 or 5. They're bad. I'm not going to say that's not a bad number. That's a bad number because it's a murder. But it is something that I think is not as bad as other communities our size. We still are a very safe community. But yeah, there's at least in 17, there was an uptick in that violent crime.
With the community growing, is there any thought to community policing where the police know who the people are in that community as well as the community knows who their police officer is?
Yes. There are two thoughts. The yes on that one. And we are, and as I get closer to the end, I'm going to show you a reorganization that I've set into motion. And part of that is we're going to have for lack of a better word, maybe a neighborhood coordinator that works with the neighborhood, works with the police, and does exactly what you're talking about. Gets the neighborhood to know who the police are, the police to know who the neighborhood is, to start a communication not only with your neighborhood, but maybe your next door neighborhood. Start some type of a broader conversation about this. But yes, and our police chief is very much looking into, we're actually doing it on campus. We're doing a form of community policing on campus. And we will roll that out to our different neighborhoods as well. In addition to having our community coordinator, or whatever we call that person, to help facilitate that conversation. Yes?
The number of calls that you cited for the public safety, for the fire department and the police, could those have been 5 calls about the same incident, or were those distinct situations that were responded?
Those are distinct situations. So if we have let's say we have a call of a fire on campus. We may send 3 vehicles to that fire. That's just one call. And that's a good analogy. Usually, and we get a lot of calls to campus, most of the time there's no fire. Most of the time it's somebody burned popcorn in the microwave, they took a shower and too hot of a shower or whatever, and it set off the smoke alarm. We get a lot of those. And so we temporarily moved our fire station number 1, while we're doing the construction of our new facility, we temporarily moved that to a location on campus. I expect we're going to stay on campus even when we move back. There will be it's better for us to put a truck on campus because we got to go to, there's a police chief once told me, one of our police chiefs told me, because I would tell him, well, those are false alarms. He said, no, none of the alarms are false. The alarms happen. We have to respond. And so it only makes sense for us if we're getting a lot of calls, even though they aren't calls where people are in trouble, it's just a call. It makes common sense. It also makes financial sense to keep a facility on campus. And I think the university wants us to do that. So I would expect that we will have a facility on campus from here on out. Okay, Public Works. You just have to look around Auburn, and we're doing all kinds of public works projects, all kinds of sidewalk projects, all kinds of street improvement projects. If you go down Donahue, you'll see all the sidewalk enhancements that we're doing, all the streetscape enhancements we're doing, everything we did on Opelika Road, we're continuing to do. We had hoped that the Moores Mill Bridge would be finished by now. It's still not finished, but it's getting close. We're doing a ton of projects. One of the issues we have, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't think about, we are reliant on a certain fixed set of contractors to do these projects. And not only are we, the city, doing a lot of projects, the city, because it's a growing city, there's a lot of construction going on. And this fixed set of contractors are having to deal with all that. So if we need our roads paved, which we do, we're reliant on just a single contractor to do the roads. And it's the same contractor that all the other development is relying on to pave their roads or their driveways or whatever. So while we allocate millions of dollars for paving and restriping and all that, we have to wait till the company who can do it can actually get to us to do it. So we have still not finished our 2016 repaving projects, and we're already in 2018. And we have a whole new set of projects in 2017 that we want to get paved. So some of the delay is not because of the incompetence of government. Some of the delay is because there just isn't enough, there aren't enough contractors to do the work that we need done. So we are doing our best to deal with that and to move our projects forward, and I think our staff does a great job at doing that. We talked a little bit about the Water Resource Management Department raising the level of Ogletree Lake, providing us with 50,000 more gallons of water. And now I want to get into just a little bit about our reorganization. 50 million gallons, I'm sorry, 50 million gallons of additional water in Lake Ogletree. And we have another pump that will be coming online with well water. And those three sources we think will be sufficient. Again, we have Opelika. We do have a first right of refusal, I guess you would say, with the quarry. And the quarry, if it were ever to go out of business, will become ours, and that will be a water supply. It will fill up with water. They're pumping water out of it now just to do their work. And eventually that would become another water supply for the city of Auburn. So as I mentioned, we have been doing things in Auburn pretty much the same way since Dr. Watson became the city manager. He pretty much has set the departments, he set how the departments operate, who they report to, and that was back when our population was much lower than it is now. As we're transitioning into a medium-sized city, I felt that we needed a more efficient government that could react more efficiently, more quickly, and could make decisions not having to do the bureaucracy up through the chain. So what I did is I have divided all of our departments into business units. And basically we have the Public Services Business Unit, which is comprised of these departments. These are the departments, these are the divisions, the ones in white. The Development Services Business Unit, Administrative Services Business Unit, and a Public Safety Business Unit. The one that needs the most care right now is this Development Services Business Unit. Because we are such a fast-growing city, we're getting a lot of construction, government has to react. We have to inspect those constructions, we have to look at the plans, we have to give out the licenses, we have to do all that in a timely manner. And we have to communicate with each other because each one of these have something to do with that process. And we don't want to have a customer, one of our citizens, have to go here first and then over to here and then back up to here and then maybe down to here and then over to here to get something done. We want them to be able to get their permit, get whatever they need, have all of our internal departments talking, get the information to the customer, and then have the customer get what it needs as quickly as possible. And so I think this is going to be significant in how we operate in the city. That along with technology. We are implementing a lot of technology to let the developers, to let the homeowners not only go online and get a lot of this stuff, but to see what other people are doing, to open up the process so it's more transparent. So you may like it or you may not. You may like it if you aren't the one who, and if your neighbor has a permit to do an addition to their property. You may like to see that. You may not want your neighbor to see it when you do that. But in the spirit of transparency, we're opening up that process so that you can see how many permits are out there, who's doing what, which company is building what, and where they are in the process. For the Office of the Administrative Services, the Office of the City Manager, as I said, one of the things I'm doing here in the Public Affairs Division, that's where the new neighborhood group will start out, the one that will work with all the neighborhoods, with the police, and trying to get them together. Eventually, that will go over to Public Safety, but I'm starting it out in Administrative Services. We've heard a lot about economic development. It's time that we split commercial development from industrial development. Commercial development takes care of those companies like restaurants and clothing stores and that want to locate in Auburn. Industrial development takes care of those businesses like Briggs & Stratton, GE Aviation, that want to locate in our parks. And I think while they have traditionally been in economic development, we're splitting those out and putting commercial development here under development services where those groups can talk and be more efficient. And I believe that is it. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can. Yes, ma'am. Right. Now, again, like I said, 25 cents an hour that's been charged in Auburn for as long as I can remember is kind of outrageously low. It does not cover our costs even closely. And parking never covers the cost. But at some point, you have to look at it from the perspective of how much taxpayer money we're spending, and there should be some return on that. But more importantly, we have to have turnover from downtown. And not only the 25 cents an hour, but the 4-hour time limit and the low fine that you have to pay if you violate that kind of is drawing students to all the parking. And so students who have classes on the end of campus that's near Toomer's Corner, on that or that area, they're not going to pay to park on campus because they have to park all the way down at the other end of campus. And they're just not doing that. They can come and get a 4-hour parking space for $2, and even if they miss that, they get a $10 ticket. It's cheaper for them to get a ticket every day almost, well, not every day, but it's cheaper for them to risk that than the inconvenience of parking all the way on the other end of campus and the amount of money they have to pay on campus. So we found that a lot of the parking is being taken up by students, which downtown merchants then are upset because there's no place for the general public to park. One of the ways that you increase turnover is through an increased fee. Now, our new parking deck that we're building is going to cost us $10 to $12 million. That's $10 to $12 million of taxpayer money that we can't recoup or even come close to recouping if we just let it be free parking. The numbers just don't add up. But we can look at it from the standpoint of making different types of parking, like maybe you do at an airport, where you might have parking by the hour, parking by the day, parking long-term, whatever. With downtown, on-street parking is a commodity. On-street, is what everybody wants to do. They want to park right in front of the store they're going to. So it makes sense that that would be charged more than if you had to park in the Gay Street parking lot and had to walk a little bit to the store. It is a conversation that the council is having now. I recommended that we did not do the increased fees and that we not do the increased enforcement until we get a place downtown where the merchants can put their employees, that the employees aren't risking getting a ticket or risking having to move their car every 2 hours or something like that. I think we might have that resolved. We are looking at working with Auburn Bank to use some of their space in Auburn Bank to make a parking lot strictly for employees of the businesses who are in downtown. We are going to open up our Glen Avenue parking. We're making that free. That's a little bit further from downtown, but if you want to park there and walk, if you're a worker in downtown, you can park there for free and it's unlimited time, at least right now. When we do the new parking deck, we will have a series of fees that you can pay, pretty much like a bigger city, a medium-sized city. It is an issue. Actually, I'm meeting hopefully next week with a group of merchants and their employees because they are concerned. Their concern is that they don't want to get a ticket. They're making pretty much minimum wage, and you get even a $10 ticket, and that's significant. You've worked all day for nothing, basically. So, yes, sir.
Jim, speaking of taxpayer money, what are the sources of the city's income?
Our major source of income is sales tax. Our second major source of income is occupational license fee. And our third source of income is property tax. And property tax is way down on the list if you compare the other ones. By far and away, the most we get tax-wise is from sales tax. And then next to that is the occupational license fee. That's why it's so important for us to get these industries coming to town who pay a decent wage and do an investment in our community. So a couple of council meetings ago, I announced that there were 4 companies that were existing here that were adding jobs, a total of 101 jobs, and a total of, I think it was $28 million in capital investment. That means they're buying equipment. And we give those companies a deal where they don't have to pay us the sales tax on that $28 million. But they still have to pay the schools, the school portion of the sales tax. They have to pay the hospital portion of the sales tax, and they have to pay the children's home portion of the sales tax. So that $28 million, while it's not going directly into the coffers of the city, the sales tax, that 4% or whatever we get in the sales tax from that thing, the schools still benefit. And so every $28 million spent is a significant amount of money in sales tax that goes to the school system. So when you hear about rebates, and you hear about a rebate is not giving up everything, and it's only for a certain period of time. In most cases, it's 10 years. So Briggs & Stratton, long ago, got their 10 years, and it's up. And so now we get all the sales tax. For everything that Briggs & Stratton is doing, we get that sales tax. And that's a significant amount. But sales tax definitely is our highest form. Yes, ma'am.
Tying on to her question about parking, if you're saying the majority of the parking spaces downtown are taken up by students, then what is the purpose of increasing parking fees from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock? Why wouldn't 5 o'clock just stay the same and not have any? There shouldn't be any students going to school, basically.
Actually, there are. At night? Yes, they are. What we have seen is that many of them may not leave their parking space. Let's say they go there for a 4 o'clock class. Maybe they come in at 3, they stay there. After class, they're still parked there. where they're going, I don't know. I would expect to the different bars and restaurants downtown, which some say, well, at least they're customers now. But they're prohibiting other customers from getting there. So turnover is something that we're looking at, and enforcement of that turnover is something that we're looking at. Whether it will be, like I said, it's still in the discussion phase, although the council has an ordinance that they want to put in front of everybody, or they want to pass, that has been put in front of everybody. I'm still not sure that we haven't tweaked that enough.
And were you also talking, though, about eliminating free parking when school's not in session?
I don't think we were talking about that. I don't think that will be the case. That's one of the things where I think we will tweak that out of there. Again, when we look at the use of downtown parking, this last summer was the first time that we saw there was a real deficit of parking. Even when those kids were gone, there were still people complaining about they couldn't find a parking space. And so that's kind of what triggered that about. But I think I think the council wants to wait and see, and I don't think they will put that in the final version. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that sales tax is one of the major, as a new home purchaser, I spend a lot of time going back and forth to Home Depot or Lowe's, and I'm assuming that Tigertown is not in your jurisdiction.
Correct.
So do you anticipate a Home Depot or Lowe's being built in the Auburn area that we could spend our money in Auburn?
Yes. We actually have a project underway, excuse me, that will have a home center as part of it. But, excuse me, it's hard to say. When you have something delivered to Auburn, they're supposed to give us the sales tax. When you buy it there at the store, they don't ask you where you live, but we do get some of the sales tax. So if you're building a home and Lowe's brings a load of lumber to that home, we get the sales tax, or we're supposed to get the sales tax on that. Whether we always do or not, I don't know. But yes, we have a project, and again, this is private investor who we've said we think we need a home center in Auburn. So we had hoped to get Home Depot, and we'd hoped to get Target. Target and Home Depot were two companies that were going to go where you have now Sam's and the sports store, Academy Sports. Originally, Target and Home Depot were going there. There was a lot of controversy about that. The neighbors that lived behind there were not in favor of that, and the council decided not to give the incentive that those companies want to locate in Auburn, so they located in Tigertown. That was Target became the store that started Tigertown. Tigertown would eventually exist. It would not exist as quickly. And once they got that main store, and then they were able to locate Home Depot as well, Tigertown kind of took off. Yes.
I just wanted to see your three largest sources was sales tax, occupational, and property.
Property.
Mm-hmm. Where's Rendletown?
Way, way down on the list. But it is. Pardon me?
It won't be with, 800 plus 1,800 new units.
Yeah.
And 1,000 a month.
True. That's true. Now there is a good revenue stream there, but it's compared to the other ones, it's very low on the list.
The reason I asked is because you mentioned about the water, and that we answered the question that we had plenty of water, and I assume, for all this stuff that's building, yet we have some citizens in this city already that do not have access to water.
What do you mean they don't have access to it?
That is true. My area, they do not have access to water. I am the last street in the city of Auburn that has water. Yet my neighbor, just outside my neighborhood, wants water but cannot get it.
If you're in the city of
Has to use well water. Now,
Well, if you're in the city of Auburn,
They are in the city of Auburn.
you should be able, now they may not opt, or their development may not opt to spend the money to tap into the city's water supply. If you give me the specifics of the address, I can find out exactly what the specifics are. Now, you may not be, we are limited to where we can serve by court order. You may not be able to be on City of Auburn water. You may be required to do Lochapoka water. Or you, at one time, we wanted to have everybody in the city limits of Auburn be on Auburn water. We were, again, sued for that. The Lochapoka Water Authority sued us. They won. They serve their customers wherever they are. Now, they charge a lot more for infrastructure to the area. So that particular person might be in the Lochapoka Water Authority area and may not choose to pay to get Lochapoka water. Now, one of the things that Lochapoka water doesn't do, even though it's a city, they don't provide hydrants unless you pay for the hydrant. So if you're on, even it's the city of Auburn, so if you're on the Lochapoka water, even though you're in the city of Auburn, I would imagine that your insurance would be higher because you don't have a fire hydrant as we require them in Auburn.
What if you're in the city of Auburn but you don't have water, period?
Yeah, I would have to, that's what I said, I would have to check on that.
I mean, you don't have water, period. So my question is this: what about fire?
That's why I would have to see the statistics that when you're on Lochapoka water, fire is a real issue because you don't have fire hydrants. And we had an incident here not too long ago where the house burned down because our trucks got there. We don't carry enough water. It's impossible to carry enough water if you can't connect to something. So our trucks had to pull up, spray what they could, run back to the closest fire hydrant, which was fairly far away, fill back up, and come back again. And the house basically burnt down. But like I said, that's out of our control. That was by court order. We cannot service in the Lochapoka area, or what the Lochapoka Water Authority has. Right. Even though you're in Auburn. Yes?
Are the city limits of Auburn set kind of in stone, or does the city occasionally annex land outside the current?
The city used to annex land quite a lot. And they did that on purpose because it was important to control access to 280. That was an important corridor. And so the city annexed quite a bit of land in that area. And because they were doing that, they had a policy that said if you asked to be annexed, we didn't go out and ask you to annex, but if you asked to be annexed, pretty much you got in. As part of that 2030 comp plan that we did about 5 years ago, we set more stringent standards for annexation. And we've dropped annexation considerably. Now what we're asking, if you look at our city limits, they're all over the place. That looks like a jigsaw puzzle. Our 2030 plan shows kind of where we want to go and kind of, straighten that out. But what we're looking at is internally. There are a lot of parts inside of Auburn that are not Auburn, they're county. So if you own land on those parts, we want you to annex inside. It's cheaper for us to service that than to service something in way north Auburn. So as we're looking at development, we're encouraging what's called infill. So that if there's a lot of land that is surrounded by Auburn, that's smack dab in the middle of Auburn. A lot of South College, as you come in to South College, a lot of that land is county land. It's not city land. And we have no control of it. That's why there are billboards on it, because we don't control that. In Auburn, it's illegal to have a billboard, but in the county, it's not. So, yes, sir.
Your parking question, I think I'm okay with raising parking fees because I think the parking is kind of a user.
Is it parking kind of what?
User fee. Parking is, I'm paying to park there because I want to park.
Yes.
Or need to park. But otherwise, as long as you're short of parking revenues, then all these other people are subsidizing the cost of somebody parking.
You are subsidizing the cost of parking. The citizens of Auburn are subsidizing the cost of parking. And every city subsidizes parking. Parking does not even come close to paying for itself. When you pay $12 million for a parking deck, and you're going to be able to park 300, maybe 300 to 600 cars, let's just say.
Personally, I have less of a problem with user fees because of that reason.
Right. Now, you have to take into consideration, you might be paying to park there, but you're also going to, we're hoping you're going to a restaurant or a clothing store or some retail outlet, and we're getting your sales tax from that too. So we don't want to say that you have to pay $10 an hour to park, because we know we're going to get some additional revenue that we have to figure into that cost of parking. But you're right, it is a user fee. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We had some calculations, one of the factors about student growth, number of students. I heard at some point that there's a factor, you didn't mention the factor of people living in Auburn and working in Montgomery, that when Pike Road was built and incorporated and had its own separate school system, that would have an effect on the number of people commuting from Auburn over to Montgomery. You notice that, or is that too small a group to have an effect?
I don't know if we've had that data specifically for that area. I don't know. We do know that a lot of times, even annexations, a lot of times people want to annex because their kids, they have kids and they want to put them in the Auburn school system, as opposed to the county school system. So they might be in the county until they have children and then want to annex. Now, we have some people that after their kids get out of school, they want to de-annex. We don't de-annex. So once you're here, you're here. We've done one de-annexation. Again, that was by court order, because it turned out that the signatories, the people who signed to get the property annexed into the system, did not have the authority to sign to get their property into the system. So their property was then de-annexed. Legally, I mean, it was legally. The court said, since these people did not have the authority to sign it to be annexed, you have to de-annex them. But that's why we got a little hole in North Auburn. You'll see that any of our property has to touch, even if it's just a little sliver, it has to touch, except for way North Auburn, there's a little hole. Well, it's a pretty big hole, but so there's city limits there, there's a big hole, and then there's city limits again. And that was the de-annexation we had to do. We didn't want to penalize the other people who had annexed in because they were contiguous, they were touching. So we left them, but we had to de-annex that one group. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.